Well, good morning. It's good to have everybody here. We'll probably have a few more people check in, but I'm Dave Beam, and I'm here with the Portsmouth Chamber of Commerce, the Ashland Alliance, the Grayson, Kentucky Chamber of Commerce, and the Maysville, Kentucky Chamber of Commerce. They're our sponsors, and they promote these seminars and these events that we have. And we're talking about giving effective feedback today, and going to spend a little time in a minute just explaining exactly what we mean by that. That may not be clear to everyone, but I appreciate your attendance this morning. I'm very excited about this topic. It is a central point of what I do as a coach, is provide feedback, and I'm still learning how to do it well and how to help people with it. So that's what we're going to talk about today. That's me. I've been married for 37 years, and in that role, I get a lot of feedback. And we give each other feedback, and we really enjoy it. But I have a wonderful wife, Connie. I have three grown sons, and they are all doing well. I am the granddaddy of all granddaddies, and that's where I get my joy and my entertainment in life. I've been a business and leadership coach for 19 years, going on 20. Just a really blessed career in that. I'm an ACBC biblical counselor. That's a passion that I like to help people with their personal problems, marriage problems, some people with depression, just life issues. Lord knows right now, with coming out of COVID and all that people are really stressed out and have some anxiety. So that's what that role is all about. And finally, I have just a wonderful passion to help people. So that's the thing that brings all of this together. And I hope I can help you today. That's going to be the goal. So let's talk about the rules of the game. I never get tired talking about these. Why do we have rules of the game? Well, in the microcosm in today, in the narrowness of today, the reason I have some rules is because I want you to get the most out of this hour that you're investing. When you really sit down and think about an hour of your life, how important and how precious that is, I don't take it for granted that people come to offer an hour of their life to sit and to listen and to absorb and to learn. And I want to make that hour one of the best hours of your week and of your month. So that's my goal. And there's a participation that needs to occur. There's something you need to bring to the table for you to get the most out of this. And I'm going to give you some feedback on what you need to bring to get the most out of this. You, first of all, need to agree to be an owner of the information. And what do I mean by that? For the hour that we're together, own what's being said, apply it to yourself. Don't think about, well, that would be good for so-and-so, or I wish somebody else would listen to this. I'm fine. Truly step up to this content and say, how can this information make me a better person? How can it help make me a better manager, a better leader, a better business owner, a better parent, a better friend, a better spouse, a better person in this world? That's owning it. Versus, I'm just going to deny that I really need any help. Most of my problems are outside of me. They're not caused by me. That may be true, but there's a lot of things you can do. And an owner says, what can I do? Second, the thing that, if you really want to get the most out of this, fully engage and participate. I had a fifth grade teacher, Miss April, that used to say to me, Mr. Beam, you get out of life what you put into life. And she was just basically saying, you need to start putting more out, my friend, if you want to get something. So participation today would be really not multitasking, not trying to take care of other things, but really connecting and listening and engaging and participating in your head. I like to take a few notes myself. I will be glad to send you all these slides so you don't have to write everything down, but the notes help me track and stay focused. The third thing is drop what you know. We're going to be talking about coaching and feedback. You may have a lot of experience in that. You may have been a manager or a leader or somebody who provides a coach. You may have provided feedback for years. Your challenge with this information is that you may say, I already know that, or I've heard that before. And here's the problem. When you tell your biocomputer that you already know that, what you tell your biocomputer and program it to do is kind of filter and to shut down and not to pay too much attention. Here's a better way to position your thinking to get the most out of today. Be curious, be interested, and say, wow, that's interesting. I've never heard it that way before, or that's a great reminder, or, oh, I remember that. I'm glad to hear that again. So it's just all in the attitude and the thought process around how you, as a listener, as a participant, participate. And then the last one is to just have some fun. Friends, my thought is most people these days are taking most things way too seriously. Now, there are things in life that are serious. There are serious matters that we need to take seriously, but most things are not worthy of our seriousness. And when you get sober and you get serious, your creativity tends to drop and your effectiveness actually tends to drop. There are human moments when we need to be quiet. We need to be alone. We need to be a little down, a little pensive. But for the most part, a fun, participating, curious owner is the person I want to get feedback from. So we want to apply these rules to our topic. And I'm hoping that everybody's saying, yeah, Dave, we're on board. We're ready to move forward. So let's move forward. Now, that may not be your cup of tea for breakfast, but I would love that breakfast. And Ken Blanchard, probably most of you have heard of him, has said, feedback is the breakfast of champions. What does he mean by that? In fact, what are we talking about when we're talking about feedback? Well, here's some other words that you might plug into there. Advice, criticism, opinions, suggestion, instruction, coaching, review, assessment, evaluation, expertise. Those are all words that you would use in the world of work and sports and life and music and business and spirituality and relationships. In other words, it's me sitting or standing with another individual and giving them some feedback on what I observe and what I hear in their behavior and their performance. Why would a person want feedback on their performance? I want everybody to just take a few breaths now and slow this whole thing down and think about that question. Why would a person want feedback? Why would you want feedback? Why would you want somebody to come and criticize your performance? Why would you want somebody to come and give you their opinion on how you're doing and what you're doing? Well, folks, if you're a champion, if you want to be the very best person you can be and serve the very best way you can serve, you would want feedback. In fact, the strongest champions, the most successful champions, in my view, even enjoy feedback from people that really don't care about them, their enemies, their harshest critics. If they can stay subjective about that, if they can stay detached from it, they can even benefit from their hardest critics. You know, the people that don't like you and they really don't like your performance, they have no filter. And so there might be some nuggets in all the junk that they're pouring out on you. And if you can be mentally tough and just listen to that, even that feedback can be helpful. But here's the second part of that question. Why would a person want feedback on their performance? It's because they want to be the best they can be. Why would they want it from you? Today, we're talking about how you can be a person that is excellent at providing feedback. Now, you may already be really good at this. And you're the ones that I'm really talking mostly to today, because I take people that are good and I help them raise to a level of greatness, because it's those one or two tools, it's those one or two thoughts, it's those one or two adjustments, it's that last few percentage points that take people from good to great. And Jim Collins, in a book that we're all familiar with, probably, Good to Great, said good is the enemy of great. When we're doing pretty good, we get that I know, and we don't really go any further. People that get up to that B plus, A minus area in life, they don't go all the way to extraordinary A plus plus the bonus, because they're already good enough. And I'm challenging you to come in curious, pretend like you're not so good at all this. You really need a lot of help with this. If you'll come in that way, you'll want to receive this. And so what I want you to take right now from this slide is, why would people want feedback from you? Why would they want you to be their coach? That's a great question, isn't it? I don't want you to beat yourself up. I just want you to get honest. All right. So I've set the table and we've put it out there, and we're going to talk about that. The first thing we're going to talk about is who you need to be to give effective feedback. I have a wonderful coach out of Canada. I haven't talked to her for a few years, Donnie Hartwell, and she gave me this lesson once, the glass. She said, Dave, I want you to go to a restaurant with your wife on a special occasion and pretend like you drink wine. She knew I didn't drink wine, but we were going to pretend. So I said, great. She said, you're going to buy your wife a very special glass of wine for her birthday or for an anniversary. And you're going to order that, and you're going to spend big bucks to give your wife a really special present at this restaurant. So the waiter comes out with this special expensive glass of wine and places it very gently in front of my wife. And my wife looks at the glass and notices that there's lipstick stains on the glass and some chunky looking things. And it's like almost sickening. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, here we are at this high-end restaurant. Here's this dirty glass and this expensive wine. So we call the waiter back to the table, and the waiter comes and snatches up that glass and apologizes. He didn't listen really well. And he takes that expensive wine and he pours it down the drain. And he takes that expensive bottle and that dirty glass, and he fills that crusty, goopy glass back up with that expensive wine and brings it back. Well, of course, we're upset and disappointed again, because here it is. And what is it that the waiter missed? That's the question. The waiter missed that it wasn't the wine, it was the glass. Now, here's the lesson for you all. Some people that you give feedback to are drinking from your glass, and some people are not. And most of you would think if people aren't drinking the wine, it's because they don't like the wine. They don't like the feedback. Well, I'm saying that the problem could be the glass. And guess who the glass is? And this is what my coach was working with me on. You're the glass, Dave. And when are you going to believe you're enough? When are you going to show up as a clean glass? When are you going to work harder on yourself than you do on your feedback? Work harder on your context than you do your content. Because folks, how it's delivered and the way you deliver it and who you're being with somebody is so important if you want to give effective feedback. So we're going to look at this first section here today. Who do you need to be to give effective feedback? The first thing we're going to talk about here is you need to be trustworthy. I want you to think in terms of you giving feedback and you receiving feedback. I want to put you in the receiver seat now. Who are you most open to giving you feedback on your performance? It's somebody you trust. What creates trustworthiness? Well, if you're sitting there with this person that's going to coach you, they're going to boss you, they're going to give you some advice. Here's a question you would have in your mind and in your heart. Does this person have my best interest in mind? In other words, I'm only going to trust people that I feel care about me. As a deliverer of feedback, do you engender care and trustworthiness? Second, I'm going to think, is this person going to support me even when I'm struggling? This is so critical, folks. We want to help people. We get passionate, and sometimes their performance is mediocre. Sometimes it's terrible. How are we being towards the person when they're struggling? Trustworthiness means I support the person no matter what their performance is. I see this in the employment arena all the time. People have a team, they have a staff, they have employees, and when they struggle, it's like they get kicked when they get down. They don't get the support when they're struggling. Trustworthiness says, I'm going to attack the performance. I'm going to give feedback on the performance, honest feedback, but I'm never going to undermine and attack the person. Always done in my world and in my coaching in kindness. That's the goal. I want to give good, strong, clear, honest feedback in a kind way, and that will engender trust. Second, who do you need to be to give effective feedback? Feedback can be great, the wine can be great, but if the glass is goopy, so impatience makes a goopy glass. A clean glass, a clean vessel, a clean person doing a great job, a great coach is patient. Wow, this one flips my switch. This one convicts me. This one shines a light on me. Patience is something I've been working on for a long time, and I still need to work on it. I am not at my natural state the most patient person, but here's the question that the person receiving the feedback is going to ask. Will this person joyfully meet me wherever I am to help me improve? In other words, whatever level of performance that I'm at, is this person going to come in joyfully and work with me and meet me right where I am? If they're patient, they will. You know, most of us grow and improve in incremental steps. People like me that tend to be impatient want it done right now. It's the drive-through fast food mentality. I want it and I want it now. The fact is, giving feedback and helping people is a long-term process. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. And it happens typically, personal growth happens typically in incremental, almost imperceptible movement. And if you want to be the person that gives the most effective feedback, you are very, very pleased with small steps and small improvements. And folks, it's like your little 3-year-old or 2-year-old trying to learn how to walk or trying to learn how to talk. They say that one word and we're all just cheerful and supportive, and then they stumble all over the place or they babble something else, but they say that one word we can understand, and we're just encouraging that. That's the picture. We're patient. We meet people where they are. Second question. As a coach, as a leader, as a manager, as an owner of the business, as a person who has a team, the team leader, am I going to be happy with progress even though it's not perfect? In other words, am I excited about direction? I don't have to have perfection from my team. I don't have to hold my people to a standard of perfection. It's about progress. It's about direction. It's about improvement. Perfection is a lower standard than excellence. Let me say that again. That's worth writing down. Perfection is a lower standard than excellence, because excellence requires patience. Excellence requires us to navigate where the person is, meet the person where they are. So, first two things, who do you need to be to give the most effective feedback? What kind of glass do you need to be to deliver that fine wine? You need to be trustworthy. You need to be patient. That might give you something to work on. Let's move on. You need to give the most effective feedback, learn how to serve people and not try to please them. This one's a little bit confusing for some people. Our goal is not to make the other person comfortable. Here's the question you would have as the person receiving the feedback. Will this coach give me the clear truth even when it doesn't feel good? Some of us are so tender-hearted that we can't stand to see anybody uncomfortable. Therefore, well, I'm more interested in coaching. I'm more interested in being their friend than coaching them. I'm more interested in our relationship in the terms of our friendliness and our feeling good and our comfort together than I am in helping you get better. There's a tension here, folks. If you're going to lead, I'm talking to leaders, that's who come to these things. Leadership by its nature makes people uncomfortable. Leadership by its nature is calling people away from their comfort zone. Leadership by its nature is calling people to a higher standard, a higher level, to growth. And personal growth and change happens outside of comfort. So you, if you're doing your job and providing great, effective feedback, that feedback is often going to make people very uncomfortable because they're looking in the mirror and we're looking with a microscope at times and we're analyzing and we're assessing. And you know, the fact that we're here, and I'm fine with this, by the way, but we're here on a webinar on Zoom and everybody has their camera off. You know why that is? I don't like to look at myself all day. People don't like to be looked at. They don't like to be examined. I mean, it's uncomfortable to have people looking at you all the time. I get that. But in this realm of effective feedback, that's exactly what the coach, the manager, the boss, the business owner is doing with their employee. They're looking and observing and critiquing the performance. And the question is, if you're going to serve, you'll give the clear truth even when it is uncomfortable. If you're going to please and want to be just friendly, you're not going to give that straight, direct truth. In other words, is there so much sugar in the dish that you can't taste the food? You know, we can't taste really we can't really get the message because there's so much goopy sugar on the glass, we can't even see what's in the glass. And folks, if you sugar it up too much, it loses its power to serve. You become a pleaser. Think about yourself. Am I a people pleaser? I don't need to be that if I'm going to give the most effective feedback. I need to be a server. I need to care enough to give people the strength of the feedback so it creates some discomfort and some challenge. I don't want to damage somebody and just be mean and rude and crass with somebody, but I want to give enough teeth and enough bite to the feedback that it gets their attention and it strikes them and it moves them and it motivates them and it wakes them up. Finally, I believe, I'm very biased here, to give the most effective feedback, you need to be a curious coach. Are you going to walk with me through this journey to help me find the way? Here's what people that I coach want to know. And doing this 20 years, you learn a few things. They truly sign up for coaching, pay for coaching, want to coach because they know they've got somebody to walk with them. Not to just be their friend, but somebody who's going to help them find the way. And they're going to point out the pitfalls, but they're also going to bring encouragement. And they're going to be curious about my life, and they're going to be curious about what I want, and they're going to be curious on how I can get better. So they're really going to care. So let's look again here. Am I going to stand apart and from a distance just be a critic? I think of the Muppets. I don't know how many of you know what the Muppets are, but there's two gold guys that sit up in the balcony, and they just point down at the performance and they just criticize everybody. And they're so good, that armchair quarterback, they can find all the weaknesses and all the failures. You know, people don't want that. They don't want somebody just to find where they're all messed up. They don't want somebody that sits up in the balcony that stands apart. They want somebody to walk with them through the journey and to feel with them and to connect with them, not just as a friend, but as a curious coach that is not going to sugar it up, but going to tell it straight. And that takes trustworthiness. So let's look at those 4 words before we move on. What are the 4 characteristics that you need to be to give effective feedback? You need to be trustworthy. Somebody that's someone that someone trusts. You need to be patient. Excuse me. You need to be a server versus a pleaser. And you need to be a curious coach. Let's move on. Now we're going to talk about the wine in the glass. We talked about the glass and the delivery, and that's you as the one giving feedback. Let's talk about the nature of the feedback we're giving. It needs to be effective and quality as well. Here's the first characteristic of effective feedback. Does it address the person? Does it address the performance? In my view, the best feedback addresses both. Does the feedback you are giving address both the person and the performance? If we were together today and doing this as a group, we would discuss at this point the importance of this distinction. I may have some time for some questions today, so you might write down a question about that. Here's what I find. Some people are very task focused. They give a lot of feedback on the performance and the doing, but they don't have that way to connect deeply with the individual and help the person. You know, who we are drives what we do. And a great coach helps the person as well as the performance. But there are some people who are so people-oriented and touchy-feely, it's all about the person, and they really don't get clear about the performance. They don't give good objective data, measurable objective data that really critiques the performance. I think effective feedback includes both. We give feedback about the person and about the performance, and we keep those distinct. I think when you're giving feedback about the person, that it is almost completely going to be encouraging. It's going to be supporting. It's going to be something about that person and believing in that person and helping that person see that they can do this. And the performance, we're going to be pretty brutal in the sense that we're going to look at the numbers. We're going to look at the measurability and see how they're doing. That dynamic together, coaching both the person and the performance, is the most powerful way to give feedback. Second, objective versus subjective. Here's the question for you to consider. How can you use both types of feedback in your coaching and in your management, in your supervising? It's kind of the same thing. We're just repeating that first thing a different way. What is objective? Objective is data. It's measurable, factual. This is what happened. Subjective is, how did they feel? How are they thinking about their performance? What are the thought processes? Think about a sports coach. They work on the athlete and they work on his performance and his activity. They give the athlete feedback on how they're moving and how they're responding and how they're reacting, but they also work on the head game. And the head game drives the action. The thinking drives the action and the feeling. And so great coaches, great people who manage and supervise and lead have learned how to provide both kinds of feedback. They address mindset and skill set. Here's the question for you as one who provides feedback. Do you observe and address both thinking and doing when providing feedback? Now, all of you tend to do more of one or the other. Some of you give more skill set, how they're doing it, what they're doing. And some of you give more mindset, who they're being, how they're thinking, how they're feeling and acting. I am suggesting to you to give effective feedback. It takes a combination of both. And you need to get some feedback yourself just by doing some personal assessment here. Which way do you tend to lean? And so where do you need to develop a better mindset and skill set to give back both objective and subjective feedback and to address both the person and the performance? Finally, process versus outcome. I love this distinction. This distinction right here will probably be a game changer for somebody today. Process goals versus outcome goals. Most people think of goal setting as outcome based. It's something we want to achieve over a period of time. Maybe it's a 90-day goal. Maybe it's a yearly goal. At the beginning of the year, I'll just use one that everybody usually relates to: losing weight. I want to lose so many pounds by the end of the year. That would be an outcome goal. What would be the process goal along with that? Well, maybe it's the number of steps you take in a day. Maybe it's the number of minutes that you work out. Maybe it's the number of calories you burn, or the number of grams of fat you take in a day, or grams of carbohydrates, whatever particular system you're on. But those are process goals. They are short-term goals. They are best daily goals. What can you measure and get feedback on daily is a process goal. I make a goal today to take so many steps, take in so many calories, to sleep so many hours tonight. Those will all be process goals. Outcome goals would be, I want to lose X number of pounds. I want to be in this level of fitness. Here's the question again. How would you use these two types of goals in providing feedback? I think they're both important. An outcome goal is to set direction. An outcome goal is to set planning. It's a planning tool. It's something to inspire you. It's something to give you something to wake up about and something to go for. But here's where the rubber meets the road and where the change really occurs. It's in the process. When we come up with a good process that matches the outcome, then we can do objective measurement of the process. And when we're coaching somebody or meeting with somebody, they're giving us process activity that they're doing, habits they're performing that will take them in the direction of that outcome. And that's where we can get a real strong accountability to feedback. Again, feedback is the breakfast of champions. What kind of feedback are we talking about? I think we're primarily talking about process feedback on the daily activity and habit and compliance and discipline to those habits. That is the kind of feedback that I think is the most powerful. But I think you create that workout regime and that discipline based on the outcome you want. They work together. And finally, I'm going to come back to this distinction again of serving versus pleasing. The feedback that you're going to give, does it serve someone or does it please them? What are the characteristics of feedback that serves versus feedback that pleases? And here's the question. Is comfort a goal in giving feedback? Now, I'm going to let everybody sit with that question for a minute because this will create a mind shift. Is comfort a goal in giving feedback? I think when somebody performs well and we observe that and give that back to them, that can create some really good feelings, some feelings of satisfaction. There is nothing wrong with that. In fact, that's what keeps people going. But is that the goal? I don't think so. Excellent people want to push on. We're talking about champions today. Feedback is the breakfast of champions. You got some champion people on your team. We're talking about coaching them, not people that are struggling, not people that are holding on. We've got some of those we need to work with too. But I'm talking about that champion on your team, that person that can be just a little bit better, and that little bit of change can make all the difference. They don't need your pleasing. They don't need your comfort. They don't even need a whole lot of your encouragement. What they need is they need to be served with good, strong numbers and feedback and honest, clear information that they can use to improve. And a true champion, that's what they want. And I'm saying, if you care about them, if you really want to be kind to them and you care about them, you will give them direct, clear feedback that serves them. And they won't always like to see it. I don't always like to step on the scale and see the number. My performance, all of our performance wavers. It's not always consistent, especially when we're starting out, but it's good for us to face the music. We need mentally tough people today that can stand up and take it and start to grow up. But, it's learning how to bring people from where they are to where they could be. And that's what coaching and giving feedback is about. So again, just to review, characteristics of effective feedback. It includes both the person and the performance. It's objective and subjective. It addresses mindset and skill set. It includes process and outcome goals, and it serves more than it pleases. I think that just summarizes that really quickly. Let's move on. Now I'm going to give you some practical tools. Everybody loves the tools, the how-tos, and I can even email you some more information on these tools if you want more details, but I'm going to just give you some summary information. The SWOT analysis. Hopefully most of you have heard of that. SWOT. It stands for strength, weakness, opportunity, and threat. Here's how I use the SWOT analysis in giving feedback. I would sit down with George. I'm going to say George is trying to increase his sales. George is a sales guy. He needs to do more cold calling. Maybe he's in real estate or something like that. And what I would ask George, I'd say, George, as a real estate salesperson, service person, where would you say you're strong? And then the silence. And he would start to reflect on where he's really good. Sometimes people have as much trouble with that as they do with the other part. But I want people to verbalize where they're good. We want to play to people's strengths. George, where do you have some weaknesses? Where do you see some room for improvement? Notice that I'm with George. We're together asking these questions and looking at what he's saying. This isn't me sitting with a bright light in George's face. I'm his coach. I'm coming alongside him and I'm asking him, where do you see where you're really great, George, where you do well? Where are you struggling some? Where are you weak? Where do you need to get better? And then, George, if we play to your strengths, and we address some of those weaknesses, where do you see the opportunities? That's where you start to talk about possibility and vision. Man, that's so powerful when people can start to see, if I deal with this hindrance and I emphasize this strength, I'm starting to see other possibilities of performance that can improve and things I can do. I see my income increasing. I see my sales increasing. I see my relationships getting better. And then the last question in the SWOT analysis is what thing, if you don't deal with it, could shut you down, George? What one thing are you doing right now that we just need to hack off? We need to amputate. We need to just take radical move and get rid of this threat. Is there anything right now that's threatening your performance that we need to address immediately? And that's a SWOT analysis. And the feedback that I'm getting is the feedback from the person I'm coaching, just using those 4 questions. Where are you strong? Where are you weak? Where do you see some opportunities if we address those strengths and weaknesses? And what threats do we need to eliminate? And that's just a great, simple tool that you can use to get feedback from the person. It's also good if you want to do 360 feedback and you want to get information about a person once they give permission to do this, of course, when you get a SWOT analysis from your team about the organization or about the leader. Say I'm a leader and I want feedback from my people. I can set up a system where they can tell me where they see me as a strong leader, where they see that I can improve, where I'm weak, what the opportunities are in my leadership, and what absolutely they see that needs to go. And boy, that's good, strong feedback. If you're a strong leader, you can get that 360. That can sometimes be great. So that's how I use SWOT, and it's a great tool. Here's another tool. Subjective data. What do I mean by that? When I'm coaching people throughout the week or the 2-week period, I want them to journal and write down their own feelings and observations. So they're giving me subjective information and data from their viewpoint. They're going to do game film to bring in for a review. So like a sports coach, we got to look at the game film. For a salesperson, it might be a conversation they had. For a manager, it might be how they worked with one of their direct reports. But they're going to bring that game film back to me as subjective data, and we're going to use that feedback to coach and to get better. Then we've got objective data. This is stuff that's measurable. How many calls did you make this week? How many conversations did you have this week? How many times did you pick up that book that's helping you get better and read? How many pages did you read? It's objective test and measure data. Maybe you're going to go try something new and then you're going to measure the results. It's a practice that you're doing. If I'm working somebody in the health arena, how many miles did you walk this week? This is just feedback data that's just numbers. It's not arguable. It's not really just, it's just the scorecard. Can you imagine trying to play a game without a scorecard? It means nothing. The score card is what tells us objectively what's going on. And then finally here, inspiration. This is an interesting one. This is inside out feedback. This is where you need to be a little intuitive, have a little emotional intelligence. I give this kind of feedback to my clients all the time. You know, people don't recognize their own greatness. You know that people don't recognize their own talents and their own strengths sometimes, and you can inspire them by telling them and reflecting. Now, this isn't a pleasing thing. This is a serving thing because it's very uncomfortable. I talk to people about the greatness I see in them. And sometimes it's sad because they've got this music in them that needs to come out. And sometimes as a coach and as a leader, you can inspire people. Sometimes it's talking about your own performance, or it's watching something, it's listening to a YouTube or a TED Talk or some kind of data, some kind of feedback that's going to inspire that person on the inside. And then we've got motivation, which is outside in. That's the carrot and stick. I don't like it as well. I think it's a little more transactional, but it does work. It's rewarding good behavior and it's punishing bad behavior. And you can have some fun with that with people if they're a little more motivationally driven and they like Starbucks or they like you to buy them dinner, or they like to get little presents or gifts or points or stars, whatever it is, it's not wrong. It's just a different way to do it, but it's really addressing behavior. The inside out inspiration is addressing heart, and motivation is really addressing behavior. And then encouragement. Now, I really want to slow it down here. If your feedback and process with people does not ultimately produce encouragement, you're going to fail in being effective with your feedback. I want you to really think about this. If what you're doing, the process, the context and the content of giving feedback is not creating encouragement, I would suggest that you really stop and you take a look and you start to work the puzzle on how can I turn this to an encouraging process, a process of encouragement. This is a very high priority in giving feedback. If feedback is the breakfast of champions to encourage them to improve and to improve their performance and get better, if it's not producing encouragement but discouragement, it will work it'll be counterproductive. And I've seen some pretty hard, cold coaches that say, hey, I just give it to them. If they're tough, they can benefit from it. If they're not, it's their problem. Well, if you want a coach like that, go find one. It's not me. I really want to get to know the person I'm working with so I know how to encourage them. Some people like numbers. Some people would rather talk a little more about it. You got to get to know people. Here's the question. Here's the litmus test to understand if you're creating encouragement in your feedback. How do people feel after receiving feedback from you? You sit down and have a coaching conversation or a feedback conversation with somebody, how do they leave that conversation? Do they leave feeling challenged? Do they leave feeling encouraged, motivated and uplifted and inspired to move forward? Or do they leave discouraged and want to give up and a little depressed and a little down? Here's a great question for you again. It's just going to challenge you. Let this speak to your heart here. How often do you share what people are doing well? Ken Blanchard, again, the one we started with, feedback is the breakfast of champions. Are we catching people doing things right? I've heard somebody say it this way. We ought to see 5 things that people are doing well versus the one thing that they're struggling with. But I think quite often we just swoop in and find the 5 things people are struggling with and forget about the one thing that they're doing well. We need to change the ratio, folks. You find what you look for. Go out today with your folks and look for what they're doing well and share that with them. Give them that feedback. It will encourage them. If you're giving feedback on weakness in that context, it will be well received. If all people get from you is where they're slipping up and failing and not doing well, that won't be something they look forward to. Here is the way to bring that all together. Are you a fountain or a drain? Do people leave a session with you refreshed or worn out? This is really direct, good, strong coaching for you as people who provide feedback. This is a very high priority in giving feedback. Is my feedback encouraging? Well, Dave, some people just can't handle the fact they're not doing well. Their feedback says they've really got improvement to make, and that discourages them. Well, as a great coach and leader, you need to help work on their mindset so they can reprocess that feedback, that feedback is the breakfast of champions, that information is going to help them get better. And again, it's working with the mindset. If good, strong coaching discourages some of your folks, then we need to work with them on that level and we need to meet them where they are. So I hope that's speaking really strongly to some of you. I know folks that come to these hour powers or these power sessions, they really want to be the best they can be in their job. And I appreciate the opportunity to provide this for you all. So 3 great offers for today. I'll email you the PDF of the slides if you want to have those so you can look at them and think about them a little more. I'm glad to do that if you just email me on request. Second, I've got some other articles that go into a little more depth on some of these things. I will attach those to that email as well if you'd like those. No cost, of course, free upon request. And third, I'd love to have a conversation how I might be able to better serve you and your team. And I will even serve you in that conversation. If you just have some questions about a situation you're in and you want some help, I'll be glad to give you some coaching and some feedback from my perspective. And that may lead to some paid work with me, and that's great. It may not. Those of you that had those conversations, you know how I am. I just want to help you out. So that's free upon request, that conversation. And there is how you can contact me. Dave Beam at mentordavebeam.com is the email address, and the website is mentordavebeam.com. A lot of free resources there. A lot of these past sessions, the links to all those on YouTube are there. So we just give a lot of stuff away because we just want to help people. And God has blessed me immensely just having that gratitude and that open hand and just giving a lot of things away. You can't outgive it. I mean, I've just got so much coming back. I've been so blessed. So thank you for today. This is a little early, so I'm going to hang in for the next 10 minutes for anybody who wants to unmute and ask some questions. I'm going to go ahead and stop the share here on the screen. And I'm also going to turn off the recording part as soon as I can find it here. There.